September 2nd, 1939. The second day of the Second World War. Less than 48 hours ago, Nazi Germany unleashed its war machine on Poland without warning, without mercy, and without any declaration of war. Now, as Saturday dawns across a continent holding its breath, the sheer speed and brutality of the invasion is already rewriting every assumption about modern warfare. Across the entire 1,000-mile front from the Baltic to the Carpathians, German divisions are advancing at a pace that staggers even their own generals. In the north, the heavily fortified Polish positions around the town of Mława were designed to anchor the entire defense of Warsaw. Built throughout the 1930s with French engineering advice, they consisted of deep anti-tank ditches, concrete bunkers, and dense minefields. The Polish General Staff calculated they could hold for at least 10 to 14 days. They lasted 36 hours. From first light, General Walter von Reichenau's 10th Army subjected the Mława line to a bombardment of unprecedented intensity. Hundreds of artillery pieces, including massive 210mm howitzers dragged forward from East Prussia, pounded the Polish trenches. Then came the Luftwaffe. Flight after flight of Stuka dive bombers plunged onto the positions, their Jericho sirens turning the air itself into a weapon. By mid-morning, the Polish 20th Infantry Division and the Mazovian Cavalry Brigade were fighting for their lives. Brave but futile counterattacks went in, cavalry charging with lances against Panzer II and Panzer 35 tanks. The result was slaughter. By late afternoon, the line was broken. The Modlin army began a fighting retreat toward the fortress of Modlin and the Vistula crossings. German motorized infantry and reconnaissance units poured through the gap, some already 50 kilometers behind the original front. The road to the Polish capital now lay dangerously exposed, but the northern breakthrough, dramatic as it was, paled beside the catastrophe unfolding in the south. Here, in the industrial region of Upper Silesia, General Gerd von Rundstedt's Army Group South executed the maneuver that military historians will study for decades as the birth of Blitzkrieg. At 4:45, in pitch darkness, General Erich Höpner's 16th Panzer Corps crossed the border near the small town of Pszczyna. 3 full panzer divisions, the 1st, 2nd, and 4th, supported by the 14th and 31st Infantry Divisions, driving forward in a concentrated spearhead only 25 kilometers wide. Overhead, entire Geschwader of Stukas flew continuous sorties, knocking out Polish command posts and artillery batteries before they could fire a shot. Facing them was General Antony Silling's Krakow army. 7 infantry divisions, 1 motorized brigade, and fewer than 100 modern 7TP tanks scattered across a 70-mile front. They never stood a chance. By 10 a.m., the German tanks had torn a hole 12 miles deep. By noon, it was 20 miles wide. By dusk, the breach extended nearly 40 miles into Polish territory. The Krakow army was split into 2 isolated fragments. Its headquarters bombed, its communications destroyed. General Silling issued frantic orders that never reached half his units. Thousands of Polish soldiers, many still marching toward the front from their mobilization centers, suddenly found German armor roaring past them in the opposite direction. German spearheads were now less than 90 miles from Warsaw and racing for the key city of Krakow itself. Polish prisoners, taken during the day, already numbered in the tens of thousands. The Luftwaffe flew more than 2,000 sorties on September 2nd alone. Heinkel's and Dornier's struck railway marshalling yards at Poznań, Łódź, and Krakow. The military airfield at Warsaw-Okęcie was bombed 3 times. The small industrial city of Koło, directly in the path of the German advance, received a concentrated attack by 30 Stukas that dropped over 20 tons of high explosive and incendiaries in under 15 minutes. When the smoke cleared, The center of the town had simply ceased to exist. Bodies lay in the streets. Survivors wandered dazed among the ruins. On the roads it was even worse. Every highway leading east was jammed with refugees. Farmers with horse carts piled high with furniture, mothers carrying children, old people on foot. German pilots flew low along the columns with machine guns blazing. Official German reports will later describe these civilians as troops in disguise. The photographs smuggled out in the coming weeks will show something very different. Behind the advancing armies, the apparatus of terror moved forward with practiced efficiency. In Danzig and the newly annexed territories of West Prussia, SS and police units worked from meticulously prepared lists. Polish intellectuals, priests, teachers, former officers, anyone who might lead resistance. On this single day, thousands were dragged from their homes. The first organized group, 28 prisoners from Danzig, arrived at a remote site near the village of Stutthof, 34 kilometers east of the city. A former Waffen-SS barracks was hastily surrounded with double barbed wire. Guard towers were thrown up overnight. The camp received its official designation, Stammlager Stutthof. The first concentration camp on Polish soil was open for business. Across the English Channel, Britain experienced a political earthquake. The House of Commons convened on a Saturday, something that had happened only 3 times since the War of 1914. The chamber was full to bursting. Peers and diplomats crowded the galleries. Neville Chamberlain rose at noon expecting to announce firm action. Instead, he spoke hesitantly of new Italian mediation proposals, of possible conferences, of giving Hitler one final chance to withdraw. The House sat in stunned silence. Then the storm broke. When Arthur Greenwood rose to reply for the opposition, Leo Amery could contain himself no longer. From his seat below the gangway, the old conservative imperialist shouted across the floor at the acting leader of the House, "Speak for England, Arthur." The words detonated like a bomb. Hundreds of members, many of them conservative, leapt to their feet cheering. Order papers were waved like flags. Labour members pounded their desks. For 5 full minutes, the Speaker could not restore order. Chamberlain sat ashen-faced. The policy of appeasement died on the spot. By evening, the cabinet had bowed to the inevitable. Britain would deliver an ultimatum the following morning. If German troops had not begun withdrawal by 11 a.m. on September 3rd, a state of war would exist. That night, London lived its first total blackout. At 7:30 p.m., the city went dark. Street lamps were extinguished, vehicle headlights reduced to slits, every window covered with thick curtains or taped cardboard. Air raid wardens patrolled with white armbands and rattles. Searchlights probed the sky above the Thames. Barrage balloons rose clumsily into position, their cables glinting faintly. In millions of homes, families sat by candlelight or in darkness, listening to the wireless, waiting for the announcement that everyone now knew was only hours away. In Paris, Daladier and his ministers worked through the night on their own ultimatum, set to expire at 5 p.m. the following day. In Berlin, Adolf Hitler spent the day at the front near Tuchel in the Polish corridor. Newsreel cameras recorded him inspecting captured Polish equipment, laughing with officers of the 3rd Panzer Division, predicting total victory within weeks. In Warsaw, air raid sirens sounded almost continuously. Civilians queued for gas masks and food rations. Volunteers dug trenches across the city's parks and boulevards. The government quietly prepared trains to evacuate eastward if the capital became untenable. By midnight on September 2nd, German forces had advanced up to 45 miles along a front stretching nearly 800 kilometers. Polish casualties were approaching 30,000. The Polish Air Force had lost over 60% of its aircraft, most destroyed on the ground. The second day of the war was over. Everyone understood that the third day would decide whether Poland would fight alone or whether the conflict would become truly global. The world waited in the darkness for Sunday morning.